Welcome to the Ultimate Sports Blog Podcast. Today is Wednesday, December 12th, 2018. Today I'm going to recap what went on yesterday in the winter meetings and some rumors that have popped up today. NBA, NHL, college basketball recap. Look ahead to tonight's slate in each of those sports. NFL power rankings for week 15 and my best bet of the week. Here we go. Winter meetings. The big thing that happened yesterday is that Andrew McCutchen signed with the Philadelphia Phillies 3 years, $50 million. I think that's an overpay, $17 million a year for Andrew McCutchen. Yes, he's still a good baseball player, but he's not an elite player like he was, say, 4 years ago. But either way, it's a good get for Philadelphia. Veteran presence in that locker room and in the lineup. He played really well with the Yankees after San Francisco traded him there last year at the August 31st deadline. He can hit leadoff. You can hit him second. He improves the Philadelphia Phillies outfield situation in right field. And then they put the Nick Williams and whomever in left. And Williams is trade bait now, apparently. I don't think they would trade Abdul Herrera. They look at him as their number 3 hitter and a Gold Glove caliber player in center field. And then Rhys Hoskins moves to first base, and that's what had to happen. Obviously, they traded away Carlos Santana to make that happen too. But either way, good get for Philadelphia. The White Sox acquired Ivan Nova from the Pittsburgh Pirates. I had a feeling that the White Sox were going to acquire a pitcher, whether it was just a good pitcher or a big-name pitcher due to the Tommy John surgery absence of Michael Kopech. And Nova was in the American League once before, and I just thought he was a better fit in the National League. We'll see how he does in Chicago. Going back to Pittsburgh is Yordy Rosario, who is a low minors righty. And then they got international signing bonus space as well. I think this is a possible steal for the White Sox if Nova pitches the way he has shown flashes of with Pittsburgh and when he was with the Yankees as well. The Pirates also signed Jordan Lyles to be a part of their rotation. Lyles had a solid year on the Padres last year, then was sent to the Cardinals for pretty much nothing. So he should be a part of what they do. The Toronto Blue Jays released Troy Tulowitzki. That was probably the most surprising news of yesterday. And it was a move that I think had to be made in reality because they have a young stud prospect, Bo Bichette, coming up. He might be a shortstop or he could play at second base. Tulo is just injury prone. That turned out to be a bad trade for Toronto, although the prospects that went back to Colorado have not panned out. I remember when they made that trade, everybody thought he was going to be a difference maker for them, along with Josh Donaldson. And they also had Edwin Encarnacion on that team and then Jose Bautista in his prime. And that team ended up losing in the ALCS that year to the Royals. And he really hasn't been the same after he was traded away from Colorado. And injuries have really derailed his career. And I'm interested to see if he gets picked up by somebody else or if he just hangs it up. The New York Post was reporting yesterday that the Phillies were close on a deal with J. Happ. That turned out to be false. And I'll get to why in a couple of moments. The most interesting story to me yesterday is a head-scratcher, and that is the Boston Red Sox trying to cut payroll. You just won the World Series. How are you going to get rid of players that were very important to winning a championship in a market like Boston? That's not going to go over well. I mean, Rick Porcello, you're hearing, could be available. Xander Bogaerts is somebody I would not trade. Yeah, next year he's in a contract year. Brock Holt, a free agent after 2019 as well. JD Martinez is not going anywhere, but he can opt out after 2019. But this is just a strange story to me. Blake Swihart, somebody that can be had in the right deal. The two catchers, Vasquez and Leone, are available. Jackie Bradley Jr. available. So it should be very interesting to see what goes on there. I don't think they'll trade Bogaerts. Like I said, he's one of the better shortstops in the American League. And yeah, he's going to be a free agent after 2019. So on paper, it makes sense. Why not test the market to see what you can get for him? But my issue with Boston is, who's going to replace him at shortstop? They don't have a stud coming at that position. But why they're looking to cut payroll is because Mookie Betts is a free agent after 2020, and they probably want to sign him up long term. Oh, and somebody else that's a free agent, by the way, after 2019, Chris Sale. So, good thing the Red Sox won the World Series this past year, because their window is closing, and meanwhile, their arch-rival Yankees have a wide-open window. As long as those guys are in their primes, and if they make improvements to this or last year's team, which is still possibly to come, maybe they end up signing Manny Machado. The Los Angeles Dodgers are trying to trade Yasiel Puig and Matt Kemp. That's been reported by various outlets. They're doing that so they can try to get into the Bryce Harper sweepstakes. That's obvious. The Dodgers have been dying to get rid of Puig for years. Something they clearly don't like about him. I guess it's his attitude. People have speculated that he'd go to Cleveland in a deal for like a Trevor Bauer or a Corey Kluber, or to Cincinnati in a deal that could fetch back possibly Scooter Gennett. And I heard Homer Bailey and even some prospects potentially. That's, to me, a head-scratcher. The Reds one I'm talking about, although I think Puig would thrive in the Great American Ballpark. Meanwhile, Kemp's contract is onerous, so I don't see how that guy gets traded. Yeah, he had a good year last year, but I'm sure that they think it was an aberration. And speaking of the Dodgers, two more things on them. I heard that they were talking to the Cardinals about Jose Martinez. That surprises me. Ken Rosenthal reported that yesterday night, and to me that was just another head-scratcher. Like, I can see why the Cardinals want to try to get rid of him, because he has no position in the infield after the trading of Paul Goldschmidt, or trading for Paul Goldschmidt, I should say. So if they were to trade Jose Martinez, I think they're better off doing it to an American League team that has a DH spot, like a Houston or somebody like that. And I don't think Martinez would make sense on the Dodgers. But in theory there, he'd play first base, Bellinger center field, and Max Muncy second. I just mentioned Cody Bellinger. I've heard from various sources that the Dodgers are listening on Cody Bellinger. That doesn't say shopping, they're listening. I think that's weird, and I think that's another indicator that they want to sign Bryce Harper, because they think Bellinger can play very good center field, and they're just trying to clear space to sign Bryce Harper if they want to go that route. But that is a big surprise to me, other than the Red Sox trying to cut payroll. I mentioned that the New York Post reported something about J-Happ and the Phillies being close. In reality, the Yankees are close to re-signing J-Happ. Ken Rosenthal made a mistake this morning. He reported that a deal was agreed upon, but that turned out to be premature. But they're close, but it's not done. This would put the Yankees in a good position to bring back somebody that they traded, quite frankly, a lot to get last year. They sent out Billy McKinney and Brandon Drury to get Happ. And Happ really helped the Yankees down the stretch. He was their best pitcher after they acquired him last year. And it wouldn't be such a bad idea to re-sign him. He, like I said, he pitched very well at the Yankees last year. He knows the AL East pretty well. He's a lefty, obviously. Yes, he's getting up there in age, but he didn't really show any signs of decline at all. But if they were able to re-sign him, it would probably be like a 3-year, $39 million deal or something along those lines. And that was, I said, reported this morning. And any other winter meetings, news, and notes, I'll pass along on tomorrow's podcast. NBA last night. Some fairly interesting results that I'd like to touch on. The Rockets defeated the Trailblazers 111-104. The Rockets go to 12-14. Portland drops to 15-12. James Harden had 29. Chris Paul had 11, and 10. Eric Gordon had 14. He was inserted into the starting lineup. Turned out to be a good move for now. Clint Capella had 13. Off the bench, Danielle House Jr. had 12. Nene had 10. Joel Green had 13. Meanwhile, for Portland, Damian Lillard had 34. CJ McCollum had 22. Yusuf Nurkic had 15 and 10. Alafrika Aminu had 10 with 15 boards, and the bench didn't do much. The Spurs defeated the Suns 111-86. Predictable blowout win for the Spurs. Back to 500, they are at 14-14. Phoenix drops to 4-24. Bryn Forbes led the Spurs in scoring last night. He had 24 points with 11 boards. LaMarcus Aldridge had 11. Rudy Gay had 13. DeMar DeRozan had a bad game. He only had 5 points, but he had 9 assists, though. Dante Cunningham had 14 off the bench. Marco Bellinelli off the bench had 11. Meanwhile, for Phoenix, TJ Warren had 23. DeAndre Ayton had 12 with 11 boards. D'Anthony Melton had 17 points, 7 rebounds, and 6 assists, so a solid game for him. Their bench didn't do anything. The Raptors destroyed the Clippers 123-99. Impressive win for Toronto. Without Kawhi Leonard, they go to 22-7. So they weren't looking past the Clippers for tonight's big game against the Warriors. And that's something that Toronto has been able to do all season long, avoid that trap loss. Although they've got caught in a couple of them, but they were at home rather than on the road. As the Clippers dropped to 17-10. That was the worst loss of the year for the Clippers, I thought. Serge Ibaka had 25 with 9 boards. Pascal Siakam had 13. Kyle Lowry had 21 with 7 assists and 5 boards. OJ Anunoby off the bench had 12. Jonas Valanciunas off the bench had 16. Delon Wright off the bench had 12. Meanwhile, for the Clippers, Bojan Marjanovic led them in scoring last night off the bench. He had 18. Also off the bench, Tyron Wallace had 15. Lou Williams did not play last night due to a sore left hamstring. That was sort of a loss for them. Danilo Gallinari had 11, and Tobias Harris only had 10. So that was just a terrible loss for the Los Angeles Clippers. Tonight's slate is pretty big. 11 games. 7 o'clock, Knicks Cavaliers, 2 of the tanking teams going at it. The Pistons at the Hornets. I think Charlotte needs this one. This is the 2 teams that I think will end up battling it out for the 8 seed in the East, or at least the 7, because depending on what happens with the Miami Heat. Good one in the Eastern Conference with the Bucks and the Pacers. Milwaukee's a 2.5-point favorite on the road. I'm skeptical of that, even though the Pacers don't have Victor Oladipo. Bucks are the best player on the court in that game in Giannis, but the Pacers have played great basketball, even without Oladipo, so I kind of like Indiana there. The Nets at the 76ers. The Celtics at the Wizards is a good game. Now the Wiz are playing a little better. 8 o'clock, the Trailblazers at the Grizzlies. ESPN Thunder at the Pelicans. This is a good game. OKC is a 2-point favorite. I think the wrong team's favored here. The best player on the court tonight will be Anthony Davis, and the Pelicans will get the upset outright home win over Russell Westbrook, Paul George, and the red-hot Oklahoma City Thunder, who are 17-4 in their last 21 games. 8:30 of the Hawks and the Mavericks. This is the Luka Doncic Bowl. The Hawks were the team that drafted Luka Doncic, traded his rights to the Mavericks on draft night, ended up getting the Mavs' 2019 first-round pick along with the Mavs' own pick. They move back to 5 and take Trae Young. So I expect Luka Doncic to be motivated in this game and lead the Mavs to a big win. And at 9 o'clock, you have the Heat and the Jazz, two underachievers in that one. 10 o'clock, you have the Timberwolves at the Kings. Kings, surprisingly, a 3-point home underdog. I think the wrong team's favored here. If this was an ESPN game, I'd go with the Kings outright, which I actually do think the Kings would win outright, just given that as a bonus pick. And then 10:30, ESPN, a big game in the Bay Area as the Warriors host the Raptors. These two teams met a few weeks ago. Raptors won outright in overtime. Kevin Durant single-handedly kept the Warriors in that game without Steph Curry or Draymond Green. Now both of them are back for Golden State. Raptors are getting Kawhi back for this game. They just sat him in the Clipper game because it was a back-to-back and they'd rather play them against the Warriors. So I think that Golden State wins. 7, I think, is the right number for this game. But I am tempted to take the points and say it's like a 6-point game rather than a 7-point game. So let's go with the Warriors and the Raptors to at least cover the 7, if not the push. So I just think 7's the right number. NHL, that was a sizable slate last night as well. The Bruins defeat the Coyotes 4-3 as the Bruins get the big win and improve to 17-10-4. Arizona drops to 13-14-2. The number 1 star of the game with 2 goals and an assist, Brad Marchand. Number 2 star of the game with 3 assists, David Krejci. Number 3 star of the game with a goal and 2 assists, David Pastrnak. The Sabres defeat the Kings 4-3 in overtime. Good come from behind win for Buffalo as they go to 18-9-4. LA drops to 11-19-2. Number 1 star of the game with the goal and assist, Jack Eichel. Number 2 star of the game, Rasmus Dahlin. And the number 3 star of the game with the overtime goal, Jeff Skinner. The Maple Leafs defeat the Hurricanes 4-1. Toronto improves to 21-9-1. Carolina drops to 13-12-4. Number 1 star of the game with 2 assists, William Nylander. Number 2 star of the game with the goal, Morgan Riley. And number 3 star of the game with the goal, Justin Williams. The Canucks defeat the Blue Jackets 3-2. The Canucks improve to 14-16-3. Columbus drops to 16-12-2 as the Jackets, along with the Villanova Wildcats, spoil my best bet from yesterday. Number 1 star of the game with 34 saves on 36 shots, Jacob Markstrom. The number 2 star of the game with the goal and assist, Elias Patterson. And the number 3 star of the game with the goal, Jake Virtanen. The Capitals defeat the Red Wings 6-2. The Caps go to 18-9-3. Detroit drops to 14-14-4. The number 1 star of the game with the hat trick, Alex Ovechkin. Number 2 star of the game with 4 assists, Nicholas Backstrom. Number 3 star of the game with 35 saves on 37 shots, Braden Holtby. The Blues defeat the Panthers 4-3 as the Blues go to 11-14-4. Florida drops to 11-12-6. Number 1 star of the game with 2 goals, David Perron. Number 2 star of the game with a goal and assist, Braden Shen. Number 3 star of the game with 2 assists, Jonathan Huberdeau. The Predators defeat the Senators 3-1. The Preds go to 20-10-1. Senators drop to 13-15-4. Number 1 star of the game with 25 saves on 26 shots, Pekka Rinne. Number 2 star of the game with the goal, Austin Watson. Number 3 star of the game with the goal, Ryan Ellis. The Wild defeat the Canadiens 7-1. I was considering putting the Wild instead of the Blue Jackets in my best bet, but the deciding factor was that the Canucks were playing poorly going into that game. So I felt better about Columbus's chances rather than Minnesota's chances against Carey Price. As Minnesota improves to 16-12-2, Montreal drops to 15-11-5. The number 1 star of the game with the goal and 2 assists, Zach Parise. The number 2 star of the game with 2 goals, Matt Dumba. Number 3 star of the game with 29 saves on 30 shots, Devin Dubnyk. And yes, Carey Price played, but in relief of Antti Niemi. The Jets defeat the Blackhawks 6-3 as Winnipeg improves to 19-9-2. Chicago drops to 9-18-5. Number 1 star of the game with 2 goals, Kyle Connor. Number 2 star of the game with the goal and assists, Mark Sheffley. Number 3 star of the game with 3 assists, Dustin Byfuglien. The Oilers defeat the Avalanche 6-4. An impressive win for Edmonton as they improve to 17-12-2. Colorado drops to 17-9-5. Number 1 started the game with a goal and 2 assists, Leon Draisaitl. Number 2 started the game with a goal and 3 assists, Mikko Rantanen. And number 3 started the game with a goal and assist, Connor McDavid. Only 4 games on the slate tonight at 7 o'clock. You have the Golden Knights and the Islanders, 8 o'clock NBCSN, the Penguins and the Blackhawks. This is easy. Pittsburgh's the better team right now, and Chicago is on the second of a back-to-back, so give me Pittsburgh on the road. 8:30 Flyers, Flames, and 10 o'clock Stars, Ducks. College basketball wasn't that big of a slate last night. Southern Miss defeats Millsaps 81-47 as Southern Miss improves to 7-2. Liberty defeats South Carolina State 75-55. Liberty goes to 8-2. South Carolina State drops to 2-10. Maryland defeats Loyola Maryland 94-71. Maryland improves to 9-2. Loyola drops to 4-7. Penn upsets number 17 Villanova 78-75. Big win for Penn. They're 9-2. Villanova drops to 8-3. UCF defeats Georgia Southern 95-88. UCF 8-2. Georgia Southern 6-3. Towson defeats UMBC 80-76 in double overtime as Towson goes to 3-7. UMBC drops to 6-5. Yale defeats Albany 71-63. Yale 5-3. Albany 3-7. St. Francis Brooklyn defeats UMass Lowell 75-69. St. Francis 6-4. UMass 6-7. Number 23 Furman defeats Charleston Southern 77-69. Furman 11-0. Charleston Southern 4-5. Little Rock defeats Miles 67-47. Little Rock improves to 5-6. Louisiana Tech defeats Mississippi Valley State 96-80. Louisiana Tech 8-3. Mississippi Valley State 2-9. NJIT defeats Fordham 53-50. NJIT 10-2. Fordham 7-3. UL Monroe defeats Grambling 72-67. UL Monroe 4-4. Grambling 4-6. Louisiana defeats Prairie View 122-90. ULL 7-3. Prairie View 1-9. South Dakota State defeats Savannah State 139-72. South Dakota State 9-3. Savannah 3-8. Green Bay defeats Wisconsin Stout 112-46. Green Bay is now 6-4. Jackson State defeats Fisk 77-56. Jackson State is 2-8. Minnesota defeats North Florida 80-71. Minnesota 9-2. North Florida 4-6. Northern Colorado defeats Johnson and Wales. Colorado 118-52. Northern Colorado 6-1. Colorado defeats New Mexico 78-75. I thought New Mexico would win this game outright. I was wrong. Big win for Colorado to go to 8-1. It could be a surprise in the Pac-12. New Mexico drops to 4-4. Denver defeats Wyoming 90-87 in overtime. Big win for Denver to go to 4-7. Wyoming drops to 3-7. Sacramento State defeats Holy Names 81-56 as Sacramento State goes to 5-2. Today's slate at 3:15, you have Troy hosting Carver. 7 o'clock, Columbia, Boston College, Lipscomb, Louisville, UMass Temple, Norfolk State Rider, Hartford Bryant, LIU's Brooklyn and Stony Brook, Army Fairleigh Dickinson, Chattanooga, Georgia State, Coppin State, UNC Greensboro, Indiana Northwest and Indiana Purdue, Southeast Louisiana and Ole Miss at 7:30, Northwestern State at number 11 Texas Tech, VMI Presbyterian, 8 o'clock, Chicago State, DePaul, Jacksonville State, Wichita State, Murray State, Southern Illinois, South Dakota, Beluve, 9 o'clock, ESPN 2, LSU at number 24, Houston. I think Houston wins that game. Portland State at BYU, Alabama State and Boise State. 10 o'clock, Pac-12 Network, San Diego at Oregon. I think San Diego can either A, win that game outright, or at best cover, or I should say at worst cover. And last but not least, San Diego State hosts Cal State Dominican Hills. My NFL power rankings go from 32 to 1 as I do each and every week. Some interesting changes I made from last week. The top is pretty much the same as well. Number 32 is the Arizona Cardinals. They're probably the worst team I've seen this year. Other than that good performance against Green Bay, which I think said more about Green Bay than it did about them. But that's just me. 31 is the Jacksonville Jaguars. They're just terrible. Cody Kessler's their quarterback now. 30 is the Washington Redskins. That was just a debacle against the Giants. There's no other way to put around it. Josh Jackson should be starting their games the rest of the year over Mark Sanchez. Speaking of Mark Sanchez, his former team's number 29, that's the New York Jets. That was a nice win in Buffalo last week, but who knows, I could say more about Buffalo. I know it's a good sign for Sam Darnold, leading that comeback drive, but they're still one of the worst teams in the league. 28's the Oakland Raiders. They've been playing a lot better of late. They upset Pittsburgh. They nearly beat the Chiefs. And I think they can win again in Cincinnati this upcoming week. 27 is the Buffalo Bills. They've showed a lot of promise within these last few weeks, especially Josh Allen. 26 is the Atlanta Falcons. That was a terrible loss in Green Bay last week. Just no-showed. 25 is the San Francisco 49ers. Upset win over Denver, to play a little spoiler as I predicted. 24, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They're just not a good football team. They gave the Saints a game for a little while, but the Saints pulled away late. 23 is the Cincinnati Bengals. They showed a lot of fight in that Chargers game because they got some players back from injury. 22 is the New York Giants. They've been playing better since their bye week. Eli Manning shouldn't be their quarterback next year, but he's making a case as his offensive line's playing a lot better, and Saquon Barkley is just running all over the place as he's not only making himself a case for the NFC Rookie of the Year, but maybe the NFL Offensive Player of the Year. I should say the NFL Offensive Rookie of the Year, and then the NFL Offensive Player of the Year. That would be quite an accomplishment if Barkley's able to win the Offensive Player of the Year as well as the Offensive Rookie of the Year. 21 is the Detroit Lions. They won last week in Arizona, but I just don't think they're a good football team. 20 is the Green Bay Packers. A feel-good win for them against Atlanta. We'll see what they do against the Bears next week. 19 is the Cleveland Browns. They've been playing very good football of late as Baker Mayfield's making a push with Saquon Barkley for that Rookie of the Year award, although I think Saquon has that on lockdown. Number 18 is the Philadelphia Eagles. We get news today that Carson Wentz is doubtful for Sunday against the Rams due to a back injury. That is not good for the Eagles in terms of their playoff hopes, and Minnesota Vikings fans come out winners of this news because that gives them control of that last wild card spot in the NFC. Number 17 is the Denver Broncos. Of course, they lose that game. That was a trap game. They have to win out to make the playoffs, pretty much. 16 is the Carolina Panthers. It's sad how bad this team's fallen apart. They're under 500 now, and I think Ron Rivera is certainly a coach on the hot seat. Number 15 is the Miami Dolphins. That was a crazy game against the Patriots. Maybe they're the surprise playoff team in the AFC this year. 14 is the Tennessee Titans. That was a big win over Jacksonville that they absolutely had to have. They have a big one on Sundays. They're a shocking, but not so shocking, underdog at the Giants. It's shocking because they have a better record than the Giants, but it's not shocking because Saquon Barkley's the best player in that game. And usually the team with the best player on it is favored. Number 13 is the Minnesota Vikings. Bad loss on Monday Night Football against the Seahawks, but they're still alive in that NFC wildcard race. That last spot is wide open. I think Seattle is the 5 seed on lockdown. It's just a matter of they're playing the Bears or the Cowboys. And I think the Vikings, despite losing that game, are the favorites for that spot. The Carson Wentz injury derails the Eagles, I think, as well as all their other injuries that they've had all year. The quarterback situation in Washington is derailing them. The Panthers season is falling apart. And the Vikings, I think, can win out the rest of the way and take that 6 seed. 12 is the Indianapolis Colts. Good bounce-back win against the Texans after that debacle game against the Jaguars. They have a big win this week at home against the Cowboys. Number 11 is the Baltimore Ravens. they came darn close to pulling off a huge outright upset in Kansas City. But they still have control of that last playoff spot in the AFC, in my opinion. It's similar to the Vikings situation. And Denver losing certainly did the Ravens a favor. And the Steelers falling apart. So the AFC North could be the Ravens for the taking. That's the underlying thing that hasn't been mentioned yet. Number 10, speaking of those Steelers, this team has fallen apart too, like the Carolina Panthers, except they are in what I think is a weaker conference in a weaker division. As the Steelers, I think, are still safe to make the playoffs, but it's not a lock that they'll actually make it. I could see a world where they're left out and the Ravens steal the North, and then the two wild cards are like Indianapolis and Denver or something like that. Number 9 is the Chicago Bears. That was a big win for them on Sunday Night Football against the Rams, but I'm still not impressed with their offense. Number 8 is the Seattle Seahawks. Big win for them against the Vikings, a game that they had to have. Now they have the inside track on winning that 5 seed. Number 7 is the Dallas Cowboys. Big win against the Eagles to put the NFC East on lockdown. It's just a matter of 4 seed or 3 seed for Dallas. Number 6 is the Houston Texans. Their big win streak came to an end. But if you could argue if Jadeveon Clowney doesn't go off sides at the end of the game, which pretty much put it away for the Colts, then the Texans would have had an opportunity to tie or win that game. I'm not giving up on the Texans as a team that could make some noise. They're a team that's improved from earlier in the year, as they have a bit of a favorable schedule down the stretch, because they have the Jets and then the Carson Wentz-less Philadelphia Eagles. Number 5 is the New England Patriots. They lost on a fluky play last week. I think that their defense is not very good, but their offense can score points with anybody. Number 4 is the Los Angeles Chargers. This team is on a roll right now, but I think they're in a dangerous spot tomorrow, although I think there's a chance they can win that game. Number 3, speaking of the Chiefs, right now, Patrick Mahomes looks like the favorite for the MVP. Had a bit of an MVP moment on Sunday, bringing the Chiefs back in that Ravens game. Number 2 is the Los Angeles Rams. That was a bad loss in Chicago on Sunday night. Jared Goff had perhaps the worst game of his career, but I still think they'll be a top 2 seed in the NFC and is one of the favorites to win the Super Bowl. The Saints are still number 1. Yeah, they looked vulnerable in that Bucs game, but they put it together in that second half, and I still think this is perhaps the team to beat in the NFC along with the Rams. And last but not least, my best bet of the day. I have 8 teams, 2 NBA teams, and 6 college teams, all basketball, moneyline parlay, plus 143 to win $1.43, the payout of $2.43. The 2 NBA teams are the 76ers. They're playing the Brooklyn Nets, and they're at home. I expect them to win that game. The other is the Dallas Mavericks. They're playing at home against the Atlanta Hawks. The Hawks stink. And then in college, I have Georgia State, Boston College, Louisville, Ole Miss, Boise State, and BYU. I don't see any of those teams losing. And that is it for today. I'll be back tomorrow, like I said, recapping more winter meetings, NBA, NHL, college basketball. We'll get to tomorrow's games. I'll pick tomorrow's big game between the Chargers and the Chiefs on Thursday Night Football. I'll do NBA and NHL power rankings and break down anything else that happens in the world of sports. I hope you guys have a great day, everyone.